All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Just Hoop Talk, Finals Edition, baby. With Justin Henry, Will Thompson. Will, my man, it's finals time.
We made it, man. We made it. It's been a journey, but we're here at the NBA Finals, the last two teams, ready to crown a champion. I'm ready, man.
Man, it's a long season. A lot of things happen. I even hurt my back in the process, man. That's why we've been gone for a little bit. But we're back, ready to talk NBA Finals action. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to go over the coaching, the offense, the defense, the X factors, and then overall who's going to win the series and in how many games. Stay tuned.
You are now tuned in to the next best thing. Justin Henry, Will Thompson.
Yeah,
let's go.
Y'all can talk that talk, but this is just hoop talk. Updates on the news, analysis who's who gon' win, who gon' lose. Is it true? Is it true? This is just hoop talk. This is just hoop talk. Ball.
All right, guys. So NBA Finals is here, and we got the Lakers and the Heat. The number 5 seeded Heat have made it all the way to the NBA Finals. Will, what are your take on these two teams and the way that they match up?
First, I got to say, we called it. We called this matchup. Our series breakdowns, our series analysis are on point, so pay very close to what we're saying. Pay very close attention to what we're saying because we got it down. But I'm excited, man. I like these two teams. I like the matchup. Like two almost completely different teams, man. You're looking at a team with two of probably the best players in the league, and then a bunch of other guys. So this is going to be really interesting to see two different styles kind of clash, man, in a really good series.
Yeah, you got kind of the, I know Jimmy doesn't like them being called underdogs, but you got the underdogs and then you got the Goliath, man. And normally in this scenario, the Goliath wins, but I think we're going to see a pretty evenly matched, series of games here. And I think it's good for us to break it down too by coaching, offense, defense, X factor, and series. So let's get right into it. Will, when it comes to coaching, both of these teams, obviously, they're here in the NBA Finals, well-coached teams, well-prepared, great culture around them. Both of these teams are focused going into the bubble. Who do you think might have that slight little advantage heading into the series?
I got to give some love to my guy, Spoelstra, man. We just heard LeBron talking about how Spoelstra doesn't get enough love. I'm going to show him some love here. I love the job that he's been doing this year. And I like this. I like the direction of the team. I love the culture. You look at the way they're playing as compared to a team like the Clippers. Like you can see that this team is completely locked in. They're all on the same page, and it shows on the court. You've got to give so much credit to Erik Spoelstra. That really, if you look at it and you look at the squad and you look at the players, like you really got to look at the one thing that stands out is they play together, they play the team, and that comes down to coaching. So I got to give the edge to Erik Spoelstra and the Miami Heat in that category.
You make some good points, man. I love the way that they coach there in Miami. Obviously those guys play hard together, well coached. But I love the energy that Vogel has his team playing with. And I feel like it's going to come down to a couple things because it's so evenly matched. One thing that we saw from the Miami Heat in the last series against the Celtics was that 2-3 zone. And I think a big part of where Frank Vogel is going to be able to have that advantage is that he knows defenses. As a defensive specialty coach, he understands the ins and outs of a 2-3 zone. And so if Miami shows that zone again, expect Frank Vogel to be able to make adjustments that maybe Brad Stevens didn't make with the personnel. You got the size with AD. He can come in and flash in the high post. Whereas the Celtics really didn't have that high post threat. So Frank Vogel is dialing up the X's and O's and able to get them out of that forceful 2-3 zone, which I think he will. I think this series has a easy way of kind of changing tides of being that close series to potentially a blowout. So Frank Vogel on the offense and the defensive side as well, I think is the big key when it comes to coaching. I don't know. There's a lot of things when it comes to coaching because it's not just X's and O's and culture that we talk about. But it's also like what you do during games too. And I noticed that Vogel tends to leave his guys on there if they're riding hot or if he's got the vets in there and Rondo's doing his work. I think the in-game coaching is something we haven't really explored a whole lot, but I like what Vogel does when it comes to in-game coaching as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I love that you brought up the 2-3 zone because I think for me that just shows how coachable and what good of a job Spoelstra has done with his guys to be able to, in the middle of a game, switch to a 2-3 zone and have it be effective. There's so many teams that, you throw a 2-3 zone out there, they try for 2 plays. It doesn't work because the guys really aren't committed to it. But you see the Miami Heat, they can switch to it. They have the intelligent enough players, and they have they're coached well enough to where they can do those types of things, where they can make adjustments within a game and have it be effective. And Spoelstra is the kind of guy who's willing to make those kind of adjustments in game. So I'll be really interested to see what type of adjustments they make to adjust to LeBron. You got to keep that in mind. Like, we're looking at a guy now who coached LeBron for a very long time. Yep. Obviously, LeBron was a different player. We have to, acknowledge that. But he coached LeBron for a very long time. And I'm really interested to see what type of adjustments he makes defensively to give LeBron problems, if they're able to. I'm really interested to see that. So I'm looking forward to that for sure.
That's so true, man. And I think let's kind of go down to that next step and start to talk about offensively what these teams can do. Obviously, we know the superstars, LeBron and AD on the Lakers, and then we kind of know the threats there for the Heat. For offense, who do you think has a distinct advantage there, if there is one? And what are some ways that they can make adjustments to make sure that it does work in their favor a little bit heavier?
One thing that I think shows itself in the playoffs and even more in the NBA Finals is the superstars, the guys that you can go to every time down the court. And I think the clear advantage is the Los Angeles Lakers. They clearly have the 2 best players on the court on their team. And I think having the ability to drop the ball down low to Anthony Davis, letting him go to work, or having them, LeBron and AD being able to work the screen and roll, I think you got to give the advantage to those guys, because in a 7-game series, when you have the 2 best players in the world, I think offensively you have the advantage. I know a lot kind of is relied on the other guys making outside shots, but I got to give the edge to the Lakers here for sure.
Yeah, and it's tough because, I'm a Laker fan by nature, but it's tough for me to kind of go to the other side and look. But when I look at the Miami Heat, I see so much potential with that offense. And even though they're known as a defensive team, they got a bunch of firepower, man. And it's scary because if they get hot at the right time, especially right now in a 7-game series, that could change the whole tide of the series in an instant. When you got a guy like Tyler Herro who's averaging almost, 20 points during the Eastern Conference Finals, that's a brand new threat that you add to a Bam Adebayo, you add to a Jimmy Butler, you add to some of those core pieces that they already had.
Yeah.
And when you start to put those together, the Lakers already, their shooting sometimes can be suspect. When you got, KCP, Danny Green, if they're not hitting shots, it looks atrocious out there. And then it's all on Bron, it's all on AD. And what do? Those end up being L's a lot of times because they're taking bad shots and they're not hitting. So for me, I think that if the Heat can be a little bit more consistent than they have been, they've already been scoring, but if Herro becomes that third piece to that offense, it could be scary for the Heat, man.
Yeah, the Heat have a lot of options and a lot of guys who can get hot quick. I love the job that LeBron was able to do on Jamal Murray later in the series, and I think that's going to be a big key, is what he's able to do defensively against a Tyler Herro if he gets hot, or against a Dragic if he gets hot. But who do you think has the advantage defensively? Who do you like in the defensive matchup?
Well, I really like what the Heat do, but I'm going to go with the Lakers in this one. The Lakers have probably who should have won Defensive Player of the Year, Anthony Davis, on their team. Got a locked-in LeBron James, like you mentioned, the job he did on Jamal Murray. But then I start to look at a lot of the little pieces and the things that they do too. We got Dwight Howard, who's an ex-Defensive Player of the Year, playing the way that he's playing right now with the effort level that he's playing. You have defending champion Danny Green, still on that roster now, on the Lakers roster, playing in yet another NBA Finals, and he's a lockdown. We've seen him with the Spurs do the same thing. You got Rondo. Rondo's playing at a really high level right now. So you got these pieces that have been all-star, all defensive team pieces starting to play together at the right time. I think it's a scary fit for anybody, plus a defensive-minded coach in Frank Vogel. Also, I think the versatility, when you can go small, you match up with some of the Heat lineups, you can go big and dominate. I just think defensively it's going to be a problem for the Miami Heat to get buckets.
Yeah, I love the Lakers' versatility defensively. I'm really, really intrigued by the Heat defensively, though. I like their options, man. I like the fact that they can throw multiple guys at LeBron. That's something that a lot of teams don't have. They can put Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's undersized, but he's He's a tough defender. And then you got Iguodala coming off the bench. And then don't forget about Jay Crowder. So they have options and bodies that they can throw at LeBron. And I'm really, really intrigued by this Bam Adebayo, Anthony Davis matchup, man. Like, Adebayo's Bam is starting to emerge as a star in this league. And this is a huge matchup for him. He's got the length. He's got the athleticism to match. He's probably not as long as Anthony Davis, but he does have a lot of length. He has a lot of athleticism. We saw that in his block against Jason Tatum. I'm really, really interested to see that matchup. And those are the key guys for the Lakers. Like, if you have multiple players that you can throw at those two guys, man, I'm really interested to see. I like the Heat defensively in this matchup. I can't wait to watch some of these matchups for sure.
Yeah, I like what they do too, and I feel like when you got Iggy, you got the defensive mind to go like that on the floor at all times. It kind of matches like that Rondo, that vet that's been there and knows what to do at all times on the court. Then you got the Jay Crowder, you got the Jimmy Butler, you got the Bams. Like, it becomes tough, and they got a lot of gritty guys that come off the bench too that don't get a lot of credit. You got the Kelly Olynyk's that come off the bench, but they have a lot of versatility that kind of that allows them to play well too defensively. But where I think that they lack on defense is that they don't really have a guy that just makes that play, except for Bam, who's kind of becoming that now. They haven't really had that guy who can just get the stop, get the block. That X factor on defense, and I really want to touch on the X factors before we get going too. The X factors of the series are going to be so crucial. Who is your biggest X factor for this series?
My biggest X factor are for the Heat. I think their vets are going to be a big difference maker. I really like the Rondo versus Dragic matchup. I think if Goran's able to win that matchup, he's able to be that 20 to 25 point a game type of guy that we saw early in the playoffs. If he's able to do that against the Lakers, because I think that's where the Lakers' kind of weakness is, right, is that point guard. And if Dragic is able to torch them and make things difficult for them, I really, really like their chances if he's able to be that guy. And then obviously the vets, Jay Crowder, Iguodala, if they're able to knock down outside shots, they're gonna make a huge difference in this series. So the vets for Miami are my X factor for sure.
Yeah, and to be honest, I was gonna go with a different direction. I was gonna go LeBron as the X factor. And yeah, it's a little obvious, but I wanted to touch on a few things, but I'm actually going to go a different direction with this conversation. And I want to talk about the championship pedigree of the Los Angeles Lakers. I think that's going to be the biggest X factor. They have players who have all been on the stage. And yeah, the Heat have Iggy, but now you got Rondo, you got Dwight Howard, you got even J.R. Smith on the bench, you got Danny Green. Like, you have players who have all been in championship games. And that matters, being able to know how to, if you go down by 15 in the finals game, what does that look like? If it gets down to a clutch shot, a clutch defensive play, like these guys, and most of the guys on that team have won NBA finals. So for me, that might be a big difference as far as like X factor. Just how do you navigate through the tough times? You know, the Heat have been there. They've stopped some teams that weren't as prepared, like, you know, the young Celtics, the Bucks haven't been there yet. They haven't really had to go through anybody with that playoff super pedigree that it's going to take in order to beat the Los Angeles Lakers. And I think that championship, just having that finals experience, is a big piece that people are underrating right now.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. You got, like, it's easy to forget that, like, these guys Duncan Robinson is essentially a rookie, right? Like, they have a lot of really young, inexperienced players, even Dragic, who's not young but really hasn't been in these huge situations. You look at even Jimmy Butler, their best player, has never been. I don't know if he's ever been past the second round. I know he's definitely never been to the NBA Finals. So that's a great point. When it comes down to it, if these are close games and there's a big shot that needs to be made, if there's a big defensive stop that needs to be made, who's the guy for the Heat? Who's going to step up and make those plays? Do they have someone that has that, you know, that moxie? They don't have a LeBron. They don't have an Anthony Davis. So I think, yeah, you're right, man. That's going to be a huge X factor for sure. If these come down to the wire and are close games.
Yeah, and you even look at a coach like Jason Kidd, who's played in the NBA Finals. I know it's not Spoelstra who's coaching the Finals, but Jason Kidd's played in, like, there's just so much championship pedigree around that team. I don't know, man. I just don't know how that's going to be a big a big factor in this series. I'm not sure how it's going to play out. So obviously nobody knows exactly how it's going to play out, and that's why they play the games. But we're going to make predictions anyway. So, Will, tell the world, what's your finals prediction? How many games?
The Miami Heat in 6.
Woo!
Yes.
6? Man, so you going with the wild take on that one, huh? Or do you really feel that way?
I've been riding them since the beginning. I'm sticking with them. If they're gonna win this series, I don't think it's gonna be in 7. If it comes down to a game 7, you're not beating LeBron. You're just not doing it. So I think if they win, it's gonna be in 6. So that's why I'm going the Heat in 6.
All right, and you know me, I'm gonna go with the Lake Show, man. I just love what they've been able to do this season. I think, and obviously there are a lot of heavy hearts that are going out this season in the bubble right now. It's been a trying experience for Laker fans, for NBA fans in general, and I think that team has really gelled together since the moment that Kobe died, man. And you could just tell they talk about it all the time. They're playing with a different type of mentality. They all look focused in this bubble. I gotta go with the Lakers, man. Even though the Heat look focused too, I'm gonna go with the Lakers in 5 games, man. Lakers in 5. I think it'll be a short series. I think the Heat will pull one out, but I think ultimately the Lakers have the 2 best players on the floor. They're the better team.
Yeah.
And that's what's gonna happen, man. So let us know. You think we're right? Think we're wrong? You've been with us all year, man. I got Lakers in 5. Will has Heat in 6.
Yep.
What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments. Call it out. If you're closest, maybe we got a surprise or something coming for you at the end of the finals. Let us know in the comments who you got.
Sir.
Yes, sir. That does it for another episode of Just Hoop Talk, the finals edition. Be on the lookout. We got more coming up during the finals. We're going to be doing some predictions and also some recaps too. So make sure you stay tuned and subscribe to the podcast. Just Hoop Talk, another edition in the books. We're out.
Peace out, guys.
For more NBA, college, and hoops coverage, be sure to subscribe to Just Hoop Talk podcast on YouTube and all streaming platforms.